So good morning, everybody. It's a very warm, beautiful day here in New York. And I love starting out the week and starting out the day with you. And I'm so very pleased that Nancy is going to be doing our reflection this morning. Nancy has been in our leadership training, and she is just taking on leadership right and left. And it's just, like watching watching the flowers blooming. It's really wonderful. And Nancy, I so appreciate your sensibility and your earnestness and passion and the way that you put yourself into the world more and more. I guess I should say that I know Nancy for years from working with Joan Clagsburn. She and Bob have been working with Joan, and I go and teach Joan's group, or I did until COVID, in Boston every year. So I've known Nancy and Bob from that. But you might want to say a little bit more about yourself, Nancy, as a way of saying good morning. And self-compassion, my God, that is a topic that is so needed. I don't know about the rest of you, but self-compassion is on the top of my list here. Okay, Nancy.
Okay. When I'm basically retired at this point, but I worked as an occupational therapist on a psychiatric unit for many years, and did a lot of different exercises of this sort with people there. But the topic of self-compassion is an important one to me because it's been so helpful to me over the years, especially more recently as I've learned more and more about it. So what is self-compassion? There are three components that are considered an important piece of self-compassion, and self-kindness is the first one. Self-kindness is something that we're apt to do easily. Well, kindness is something that we're apt to offer easily to other people, but not so easily to ourselves frequently. So self-compassion entails being warm, understanding toward ourselves. Whenever we're suffering, if we feel like we've failed, we feel inadequate, often, instead of being kind to ourselves, we get angry with ourselves. We might even call ourselves names. I did it yesterday, as a matter of fact. I went out on a bike ride later than I should have, forgetting I knew was, that the times had changed, but I'd kind of forgotten how I was going to work on the lateness. And I came in almost pitch dark riding on the trail. But I could barely see it and I made it in, but it was a stupid thing to do. And that was what I called myself. Then mindfulness is also an important component of self-compassion. And we've probably all used mindfulness lots of times, but do we remember the non-judgmental part of mindfulness? Because I think frequently, at least for me, I tend to judge myself when I've done something that wasn't quite as well as I wanted it to be. But as well as being non-judgmental, it's having a receptive mind state where we're observing our thoughts and our minds and just kind of letting them pass on through, but observing them and taking them in. The key here is without suppressing them, without denying them. And all too frequently, we tend to not want to look at them, and we suppress, we deny. And then the minute we do that, they're going underground and we're wreaking havoc within ourselves with underground feelings that we really don't deserve. So just letting them flow through in a non-judgmental way is going to be a lot more helpful. And then the idea of common humanity is important as well. We tend to feel that we're all alone when we make mistakes or misjudge somebody or something. But we're all human. Every single one of us makes mistakes at times, but we usually feel pretty alone. With self-compassion, we recognize that life challenges and personal failures are just part of being human. We're all there at one point or another. We all share this. And when we can remember it, we feel less isolated, less alone when we're in pain, having made some sort of a bungle. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of what self-compassion is, let's go on to practice just a little bit of self-compassion, because I find that the practicing of it makes a pretty big difference to my incorporating it into my way of being. And what I'd like you to do is to think about or write about, whichever works best for you, a problem that you have that tends to leave you feeling badly about yourself. It can be anything at all. It can be something little, it can be something bigger, whatever you'd like to work on today. And as you're thinking about it or writing about it, notice what emotions come up. It might be shame, anger, sadness, fear. Just kind of be aware of what comes up as you think about any problem that might come up. I think I'm going to take that phone off the hook. I took the phone off. Okay. So after you have just recognized, thought about a problem that really, really troubles you, I want you to think about an imaginary friend. And this friend is so unconditionally accepting and compassionate. And this friend knows all of your strengths and weaknesses, understands your life history, what your current circumstances are, and understands the limits of human nature. So from that perspective of that imaginary friend who is so kind and so compassionate, I want you to write a letter to yourself from that perspective. What would your friend say about that perceived problem? How would he or she convey that deep compassion that you need? How would your friend remind you that you're only human? And would your friend make some suggestions that reflect that unconditional understanding? And I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to write this. I'd like you to give it some thought. A kind, accepting, compassionate letter from a friend that understands you thoroughly. And write that to yourself. Okay, I think I'd like to go on to the next piece of another way of practicing self-compassion with ourselves. Before we throw it out and I ask you, well, how did this land with you? How did it go? So this next component, I'm going to ask Christine to put up the third overhead. So it's another way of practicing some self-compassion. And I've got a mistype there. It should say way down, it should say may, not my. But what we're going to be doing is filling this out for yourself. And this is something that I've used a number of times, and it may feel a bit corny, but I've used it a number of times with some pretty devastating situations for myself. And when I have filled out those last two for myself, I haven't always believed in my heart what it was I was writing. Even though I knew in my head, cognitively, that it was true, but it wasn't there in my heart. By writing it down and then rereading it and repeating it to myself over time, for quite a time, it actually, I was able to take it in and believe it on the inside, not just in my head. I was able to take it in and believe it in my heart. So the repetition is actually quite helpful. So to begin with, what I'd like you to do is remember something that you've done that just makes you feel glad inside. Something that makes you feel really glad inside of you. And I want you to let that feeling spread throughout your whole body. Something that you have ever done anytime in your life, but something that you've done that leaves you feeling very glad inside. Let the feeling spread throughout your body. And then later, I'm going to ask you to read all of this. I'm going to do it right now, just to set an example. So, may I feel at peace? May I accept and love myself as I am? May I know that I deserve kindness and support? May I come to believe that I am good enough? May I come to know that what was done to me as a child was not my fault? And then I'd like to give you time to be with it, to fill it out. And then maybe in the breakout rooms, if you're comfortable, to read it aloud to one another. It really can have quite an impact. So I'm going to give you some time again to complete this form and give everybody a chance to react to any of this stuff. Any thoughts and reactions?
It's nice to look at everybody after that inner work.
What do you see, Lynn?
I see the sort of coming together after a deep introspection. And I feel that in myself, that I was very in myself, and then I come and look at you. Wow, here we are together in this.
In our common humanity.
Well, also in the intimacy of all of us being very intimate with ourselves, with each other.
Yes.
I mean, there's almost nothing more intimate than really focusing on self-compassion, what you feel good about that you've done, your intention to be kind and comforting to the child inside. A very tender kind of place, for me at least.
So true. Thank you, Nancy. This comes very, I think you say apropos here, which is a little different in French, but I think that's what it means here in English. I have a situation that I just learned this morning that is painful. And so it was really good to bring this compassionate friend and write from that perspective. it feels like it allowed me to embrace the situation in a much bigger way. I really appreciate that because I'm feeling a sense of more, and I wouldn't say peace yet, but really a calming movement toward a freeing and more peace with it. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sophie. It's lovely. It's lovely.
Thank you, Nancy. That was just really helped me go I went very deep. And I was surprised by just imagining a loving presence or an imaginary companion or whatever, how much that helped me have a stronger relationship with myself. Something that I'm struggling with. So it was helpful. I mean, it was so helpful. I felt like that part of me was saying things to me that I needed to hear, that I thought I was saying to myself, but I said it in a deeper way. So it was really, really, really helpful.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
But this is something I tend to not think about in my daily life until I have an exercise like this, and it brings me back to what's really going on inside me some of the time, even though normally I don't think about it. This was a good reminder of what goes on at a deeper level and what needs healing.
I found myself getting up, walking around, doing things, making it better for myself. And the song that Lynn played for us in the Thursday class, it ain't me, babe. No, no, no. And that came around. Oh, yes, it is me. And I can do this, and I can do this. And it made it very tangible. Thank you.
Nice.
I'll lower my hand. Nancy, I really thank you for allowing us to reflect on self-compassion. And I was like thinking, wow, what a coincidence that today's topic would be like this, because I've been tackling two issues. And yesterday I felt like I had arrived to a very self-compassionate place, and I was excited and joyful. And then I got an email that brought me back to the same place I was before. And I couldn't believe that a little teeny email could trigger and set me back again. And I do have a friend that reminds me of this imaginary friend. She could not be more loving and compassionate. And so to be able to reflect, though, again on this issue, I know that when I leave here and time pass, I need to be compassionate to myself, that I don't have to have a resolution at this moment. Mm-hmm. That even though the letter was very compassionate, and it took me to a Buddhist practice called Tonglen, where you breathe in the suffering that you're experiencing, and you breathe out, love and compassion to yourself and the world. I know that beyond this space, later on, maybe in the afternoon, I will feel what I know is deep self-compassion for myself, and it will ground me. But for now, it's like I'm still in that space of memory and trigger and self-compassion, memory, trigger, self-compassion. I'm like in this space of still. So I need to offer myself that loving self-compassion, unconditional friendliness, that it's okay. I don't have to be in any space right now. I could be in the space that I'm in.
Wonderful. Repeating it to myself really did help me immensely. mean, this is over weeks.
Mhm.
Difficult. for
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I love the loving kindness. May I feel at peace. That also is something that puts me at ease and it helps me. I think that for me, the trigger also is that tomorrow I have to do the presentation to the faculty, which stirs me. And I think that until I have that done, maybe I might not be at peace. However, I've gotten to the place, and this is helpful to me, to be able to be in that presentation in a loving, compassionate way, in an honest, humble way to be vulnerable. Because I think as a faculty, here I could be vulnerable, but as a faculty in a university system, loving kindness, vulnerability, mindfulness is kind of frowned upon a little bit. So I navigate different worlds, although I know they respect and love me. You know, it's a strange place to be, but I think being vulnerable and honest for me is the best place to be.
I suspect some of the others will respond to it positively also, and that they're vulnerable also.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I think I might have mentioned, I did tell you last week that my cat Jeannie was missing, and in our Halloween party, and that was like a horror for me, with a lot of other turmoil in my life, that just suddenly in the city she was missing, and she had gone down a hole in the bathroom where they were putting in a new shower, and she was in the subfloor, and I thought that she must be dead because I didn't hear any meow, and I was just so distraught. And she was a very, very special cat. She was my mother's cat, and she arrived at my mother's door as a kitten, after being thrown out of a car, and she's just always been very, very special. And so I sort of gave up after the fourth day, and I felt numb, and just that sense of not disheartened, not caring anymore about life was the feeling. And then she appeared. She appeared in the neighbors. She came down a vent in the ceiling of my neighbor's closet, and just as I had given up, she was presented to me, and I emailed everybody, and I texted everybody that was so worried, but I couldn't really feel anything. I couldn't really feel happy. I couldn't feel relieved. It was like my whole system was just too overwhelmed. And then I was sort of mad at myself that I couldn't be happy with this wonderful gift. And so I've been focusing quite a bit on that this week, and this presentation, Nancy, is so helpful to me. It fits right in with this need to be compassionate to the little one in me that just became overwhelmed and can't settle in yet. Day by day, I'm getting a little bit better, but it's now it's going to almost be a week. Tomorrow will be a week, and I'm just beginning to feel myself again, to feel some enjoyment or light or something from that place in me. And I recognize that that's a something about me, that I go numb. Some part of me goes numb when I'm overwhelmed. And that I want to embrace that, that's the way I am made. That's the creature that I am, that will just sort of go limp when there's too much.
when it's just too much. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. That was very powerful for me.
Can identify with having been to such a place.
It felt good to share it. I remember Gene saying that there are two kinds of people in the world. He said, ironically, of course, there are the blue-eyed people who can't find their feelings, and the brown-eyed people who get overwhelmed and spilling over. And I'm much more of the blue-eyed type, that when things are too much, I just can't find anything. So I'm accepting that.
Thank you for sharing, Lynn. I am amazed by your cat, how she find your mom after being thrown out of a car, and here she find her back home after being in the subfloor and go through a vent. Wow, what a survivor cat. Amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you.
So wonderful.
I can relate to that, Lynn. I can go numb and limp myself when overwhelmed. And as far as your survivor cat, we're all survivor cats, aren't we?
Yes, yes. We are. We named her Jeannie for genius because she can do anything. And all of us are geniuses in our own way. There's a very, very particular way that each one of us is a genius.
Lynn, what a play on words, because genie is magical.
That's true. Yes, right. I would love to hear if anybody wants to share. I would love to hear the part about what you feel that you did that just makes you happy that you did it. I found that really helpful to think about.
What makes you feel glad inside? Through
Right.
Yeah, you know, when you said that, Nancy, I remembered I was in this training on sensory motor psychotherapy, and it was what made you feel joy in your body or something. And but this time you said, what you did that makes you feel glad? There's a difference between what you did that make you feel glad and the experience of joy in the body, an experience of joy. And I was kind of grappling with that because the question was, remember something you did that makes you feel glad inside. Let that feeling spread through your whole body. And then say to yourself, may I feel at peace? May I accept myself? And so, Lynn, your question of what you did, I couldn't think of anything, Nancy. I just thought of the joy I felt when Trump didn't win. And I'm sorry if there are any Republicans here. I had such a joy. And then I live in the country in New York. And that day I went to Hudson. It's a beautiful little town. It's easy to get here if you take an Amtrak. It's the most beautiful little town. And I didn't know anybody, but people were hugging each other. And if somebody drove and honked, everybody would leave the stores. The whole place is antiques and shops, and they would hug each other.
Lovely.
Oh my God, I will never forget what that felt like. So I couldn't say did, I just remember that joy that like something was saved. It even makes me cry when I think of it. So I'm going to pause. I don't want to circle.
Well, thank you for asking this, Lynn, to pause on what we have done that made us feel joy or glad. And recently I was traveling in this beautiful part of this country. This is an amazing country. I was in Sedona, and some of you may have visited there, but the land is so powerful. And I felt that power. And one late afternoon, we went to a place where there is some free dancing weekly. And this place is like in the middle of a orange, red rock on top. It's just out of this world, but it is in this world. And I danced on the edge there, and this was it brought so much joy, so much happiness. And I'm really lucky that somebody, took a very quick video of one moment, and that was really reflecting back how much this is important to me. And that I haven't given enough space in my life due to many different little things that came in the way. That this difficult situation is opening some space for actually, maybe having more of that. So more of that gladness, of that joy. So yeah, thank you for the association, and that helped me associate with those two. I hadn't. I highly encourage you to go there if you have a chance. My God.
Sometimes just little things have made me feel glad inside, and maybe just a smile or a welcoming to somebody in a place that they may not have felt welcomed. But that was obviously important to them, can leave me feeling glad inside. It doesn't have to just be a great big thing.
Nancy, thank you for sharing that small things can make you happy. It was my birthday on Halloween, but I celebrated for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then on Monday. And it was great. It was like every day was a happy day. And then on Sunday, this is just to go back to what I said about joy. A woman came to remind us that there was early voting and that we should do it in Hudson. And we got dressed and left to vote. And I felt this incredible joy. And then we went to lunch, and it was like the joy remained in me, a joy of choice, a sense of choice. And yeah, it was a happy birthday weekend.
Wonderful.
So, how was your breakout room? Did people read their letters? Did you read your letters? Just anything that comes to you. We always have that pause, which is so needed when we first come back and coming back into the group and what we want to share. And
We were talking in our group about are these may I's a form of prayer? I had never thought of it that way, but someone in the group mentioned it, and I made me wonder about that. I raised the point that these are not so much wishes for something in the future, but they are present moment intentions.
Yes, absolutely. John O'Donohue has a lovely little description of the idea of a blessing, and the Irish idea of, well, I think it's not just Irish, but part of a blessing, it's like an intention a wish, a being unified with the whole, and the may I is always part of that process.
Also, there's a very major Buddhist loving kindness prayer, which starts, and I love it. I say it all the time. May I be peaceful, happy, light in body and spirit. That's only the beginning of it. But just saying those words over and over, it's so deep. May I be peaceful, happy, light in body and spirit, safe and free from harm. And it goes on. It's the loving kindness prayer from the Buddhist tradition.
Yeah.
This supports a certain state of mind, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We can be in a negative state of mind or any state of mind, but this is a state of mind that's wholesome, and it refreshes us.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea, but it's a state, it's a self state, a state of mind that we're bringing in, we're ushering in a future that doesn't start later.
Right.
I like that. A future that doesn't start later, right?
In Hindi language, when I just started to learn English, or I guess my children taught this to me, like when they say, Miss, can I go to the bathroom? Or may I go to the bathroom? The difference between may and can.
Yes.
And
I've heard that since I was a little girl. Now I'm remembering that.
And if you apply that aspect to our current effort in being or choosing or intending to ask for these things, should we say, can I or may I?
AI. May I is like asking permission. Can I is, can I physically do it?
No, I guess may I assumes that you already can. May assumes that you can, right?
Mhm.
It's the difference between could you help me and would you help me?
And may I be helped? It's sort of like you're identifying with the universe there, and
for me, yeah. It also, for me, feels like, am I allowing myself to do this? Can I allow myself this,
right. Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I brings us from individuality to may I to universality, sense of universe, I think. Can I is just can I, and may I, anybody can, anybody.
Yeah, for me, may I also, bring something bigger.
Mm.
It's not just about what I can, but it's, the forces around me that also brings, is part of this may.
Yeah.
Jim, I wondered how it landed on you.
Jim is mute.
He's fixing it.
I was also distracted, so I don't know what could you repeat the question?
I just wondered how the whole thing, or any pieces
I
of
found it very difficult to do. I tried my best, and I was compassionate with myself for failing.
Say that again. You did what?
It's brought up a lot of stuff, a lot of things that I grew up with that make it very difficult to enter this space. And I realized I have a lot of work to do to be able to do some of these things. And then I stopped myself from beating myself up, but now I have a lot of work to do.
Okay.
I achieved it.
It's the opposite of beating oneself up.
Yes.
If you can come up with a couple of phrases that mean are personal to you with the others, repeat them to yourself enough. You can come to believe them over time. I didn't at first.
I have a lot of
Repeat
trouble
them.
repeating phrases simply because I have trouble keeping things orderly and doing them on time. I missed a meeting yesterday. I just forgot. Half an hour earlier, I was all ready for it. And then an hour and a half later, I said, "Oh, I totally forgot." So, and that's a meeting. So phrase just doesn't have a chance.
But you did the best that you could at that time.
And the best I could was not that bad considering how difficult it was.
So loving kindness is really important right now.
I loved what you said about the difference between beating yourself up and I have a lot of work to do. There's something nice about, oh, I have a lot of work to do. It's sort of a kind of welcoming.
What
Like,
I actually do
oh, it's growing here.
it's just a lot.
Mm.
That's so beautiful, Lynn, that you pointed that out. I was thinking about that. Pema Chandra, she's a Buddhist teacher. It's not a book, it's actually a retreat lecture. And I was listening to it. It's called This Moment is My Teacher. And she says that every moment is just a moment to remind us what Jim said, that we have a lot of work to do. Or that we're still working on the issue, or that there's something we're not looking at that's deeper. We got to go deeper. So when I was struggling in the ways that Jim was struggling, I said, I know I can be very loving towards myself and that I can offer unconditional, kindly friendliness to myself. And yet I felt the resistance there, and I needed to be with that resistance and see in ways that all of this is helpful to me because I've used it and it has been helpful. But what part of me is resisting right now or doesn't want to go here or there, and to just be kind to that part of me, be okay with her. And she's teaching me something, and that I'll learn the lesson later on when everybody's gone. I'll be like, yeah, I got it, or oh my God, I'm in such loving kindness place. And I might not have all of you to share it with, and that it's okay.
Thank you for that, Anesi. Because sometimes I just love that this moment is my teacher. Because sometimes I have such difficulty like being present. Every part of me wants to be here. And Nancy, I'm so appreciative of the lesson. And as Lynn said, the compassion behind your words, I just really feel them. And they come here, and somehow there's sometimes difficulty internalizing the compassion. There's those amazing early blocks that just come in. And I just wanted to put myself in the room with all of you so I could feel your presence. So thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Jack Cornfield came out with a saying that this seems to fit the occasion. He says, "You're both the gardener and the garden.
Yes.
Plant good seeds."
Yes, I love that. Maybe that's a beautiful ending statement. And Dorothy, do you have a poem for us today?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I
And-
just do one more thing to Jim?
Sure, of course. Of course.
That little boy inside deserves compassion for any of what it is that you know. But the little
Okay. This is from Rumi, and it's
little boy,
called
if it's easier to choose to.
Yeah. Prayer. Pray, pray, always. Prayer and adoration are your breath. If your breathing stops a moment, your life will end. The soul in its exile longs for its kingdom beyond space. Why does its animal half feed so long in fields of death? Your essential soul is noble. How long will you look in darkness? You are the royal eagle. Listen, the king is whistling for you.